Sure.
Okay, welcome everyone. Uh, my name is Frank Russo, and I'm happy to welcome you here today. I don't know if it's your first time coming to one of our speaker series events, but the idea here is to uh, disseminate some of what we're learning and to hear from people that are involved in these choirs firsthand, as well as the people directing these choirs. So very broadly, in case you are new here, SingWell is an international research project that is centered at Toronto Metropolitan University, but we have partners across Canada and across the world, in fact. And collectively, we're trying to develop a critical body of knowledge around uh, the benefits of singing for communication and well-being. And so that involves a number of research projects, some of which have been on the topic of stuttering, today's topic. But SingWell also has this, what we call a knowledge mobilization arm. And that's where today's kind of event comes in. Rather than just publishing our results in scientific journals and maybe having two or three people read them, we're really motivated to mobilize activity in the communities, to share knowledge, to have more people see that this is an opportunity. So that's sort of the introduction to SingWell if you're new here. And I'll pass it over to my co-director, Dr. Arl Good.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Frank. I'll just add, I'll just take a moment to thank our partners because we can't do this work without them. In particular, the piece about that Frank was mentioning, the knowledge mobilization. So spreading the word, this is something we rely really heavily on our partners for. So for example, the speaker series, we're partnered with Choral Canada. We're really grateful for that partnership. And of course, we want to thank the CSA, ABC, Speech and Stuttering Institute for helping to share that this event is happening to the stuttering community and those that are working with the stuttering community. And we have over 30 partners, as Frank said, across Canada and beyond. So we're really grateful for all the work that they do. This is really a partnership grant. So these are partnerships. This is a network that we're building, and every piece is important. So we thank everybody, and especially Kathy. So thank you, Kathy, for the initiative of putting the speaker series together. And without further ado, I will pass the mic off to Kathy, who will set the stage for us.
Thank you, Frank and Arla, and thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see your faces or to see that you're here by virtue of your names on the screen. That's wonderful too. Just a couple of little housekeeping things before we start. Our presentations may take us all the way until 1 o'clock, in which case we'll have a Q&A afterwards. So if you have to leave before 1 p.m., then not to worry, just please put your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that they're answered. And then in a short period of time, we'll be emailing the questions and answers so that you'll have access to those as well. When you logged in, you probably saw that there were translation services. And if you're not too sure how all that works, Catherine will just pop something into the chat with a little bit of tech support there. And I just want to also mention before we start that SingWell is planning another round of singing groups for individuals who stutter. There will be some information coming around about that in the presentations, but in case you weren't able to stay until the end, I wanted to let you know that more information will be coming your way, whether you're someone who stutters or you're a singing leader of groups for people who stutter, or a family member or anything like that interested in that research and participating in. Okay. Before we do start, we just want to acknowledge that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have been making and sharing music on this land since time immemorial. On behalf of the SingWell Project, we recognize the privilege of working and creating on these unceded territories. We honor their stewardship and are inspired by their ongoing legacy of creating community and healing through song. Thank you. we want to know who's in this space with us. And so Catherine's just going to launch a short poll. It will only take a minute or two for you to answer, and then we'll all have a sense of who's here and what your area of interest is. So just take a second to answer that, please. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody, for answering those questions. If you're still, feel free to continue populating that poll. But what it looks like is we have people from Canada and the US and the UK. I know Simone is visiting us, is presenting today from Italy. So we've got people from all over the world in this space with us today, which is very exciting. We also have a breadth of professional expertise and interests, and that's exactly what this series is all about, is bringing people from diverse backgrounds who share the common interest in group singing and its benefits together to explore that vital intersection between researching it, leading it, and participating in it. We know that this intersection is rich with great insights, but we rarely get to explore it all in one place, which is why we're here today. And that's why SingWell has created these conversations. Today, as you know, we're diving into the benefits of group singing for those who stutter. Our panel will share their unique perspectives from a scientific standpoint, a leadership standpoint, and also from the very important lived experience of being in that singing group. Okay, our researcher today is Simone Falk. She is, her work focuses on the interface between language and music to answer fundamental questions about how motor and cognitive rhythms evolve together to enable human communication. She's an associate professor of neurolinguistics at the University of Montreal, a member of the International Laboratory for Brain, Music, and Sound Research, and a Canada Research Chair in interdisciplinary studies on rhythm and language acquisition. Simone is currently studying singing and rhythmic abilities in those who stutter to better understand the relationships between motor, speech, and musical rhythms, as well as their impact on communication and speech acquisition. We're so pleased to have you here with us today, Simone, and I'm very happy to turn the space over to you to present your research.
Thank you so much, Casey. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited being here. I'm excited seeing known faces, seeing partners, SingWell, seeing new people. Thank you all very much for coming. So I will share some slides with you to present you why I am so interested, or why it's really a project that goes to my heart to do the research on singing and stuttering. So I will try to share my presentation again. So work fine. Okay, does it look good? Oh, Kathy, is it good? Everything good?
It looks great, Simone.
Okay, okay, so let's start then. So singing and stuttering is something that evolved in time in my research interests, because I was initially interested in singing and rhythm, and the benefits of the interface between music and language via song and rhythm. So why stuttering? First of all, maybe some of you are not so familiar with it, so I will just give a short overview of what you're talking about. So here we are talking about developmental stuttering, which is an early onset neurodevelopmental speech motor disorder, which is disrupting speech fluency in a major way. So if there is severe stuttering, we will find blocks in the speech of people who experience the stutter, like mouse saying the word with a block before prolongations, mouse, and repetitions, mouse. So these stuttering symptoms can occur at any time and are not necessarily predictable, although there's some anticipation of the stuttering that it announces itself somehow for the person who experiences these interruptions. So these are the core symptoms of stuttering, which are characteristic of the speech. 5 to 11% of children experience stuttering sometimes in their life, but 75% of them remit before the age of 16, and even more before age of 9 years of age. So overall, there are estimates that we have a population of 1% of adults who stutter, or maybe a little bit more. The estimates are not so precise, because sometimes stuttering is not experienced in that way anymore by the perceiver, the audience, but the person who stutters still feels that there is some stuttering going on, even if we don't perceive it as an audience anymore. There are 65% of comorbidities coming with stuttering. So that means stuttering is rarely coming all on its own. There are some other conditions that are surrounding stuttering, especially in childhood. We know about ADHD or some dyslexia or some other things that might complicate the picture for children who stutter. What the science knows about stuttering has evolved dramatically in the last 20, 30 years, and we are really very happy about that. So there is a very large research into brain structures, and we know that there are altered brain circuits for movement control and timing of speech that are characteristic of stuttering. We also know, but this is not yet explained, why that stuttering highly varies from one day, week, month, year to another. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. So we don't really know why it is like this. And on the other hand, there's several other symptoms that accompany stuttering and these primary symptoms. One is the one that we feel that we lose control of our speech because it's happening without our voluntary control that the stuttering occurs. And coming with that is a bunch of other symptoms that may or may not affect a person, but the psychosocial impact of stuttering can be quite severe. Not for everyone, but for some people, it is a very high impact. And these are some keywords that characterize stuttering on the psychosocial domain: fear to speak, loss of self-esteem, anxiety and stress and fatigue by everyday communication. There might be avoidance strategies and secondary symptoms that are developed by people who stutter, like not going to certain places, or avoiding certain contacts or certain situations. And we also see something that is quite common in all conditions that imply communication difficulties, that is stigma. So there is research going into that right now more and more, but stigma can be quite extreme for people who stutter in some societies, and also around here in North America and Europe. So why do we want to study singing and stuttering? And first of all, there is there are very interesting things going on what concerns the articulation. So singing is shaping articulation a different way. It's speech and it's not speech entirely, because there are so many other things going on while we sing with our articulation. Also, our brain is somehow tuned to other circuits. It's the same, it's overlapping with speech, but there are other circuits in the brain and connections that respond differently and are more activated during singing. So one important point is that by understanding how singing shapes the articulation and how the brain manages speech motor control during singing, we also know that rhythm is an important aspect of singing, and that this is one of the most overlapping topics between speech and music. So we have reasons to believe that if we train the timing and the rhythmic system, either via music or speaking, we can also train the general timing system and possibly impact speech motor control in some way. So singing is a rhythmic activity. And singing is an activity that we know that has a lot to do with communicating with others, especially when we sing in a group, and can foster well-being and induce happy emotions. And we know that this is also an important part for the psychosocial impact of stuttering. So these are the three reasons one might want to study singing and stuttering and the benefits it can bring to people who stutter. So here we have some research. I will just shortly cite some studies that found that singing, when one sings, stuttering is reduced by like over 90%, might still occur, but it's dramatic reduction in stuttering. It improves articulatory control in people who stutter. So the way we shape the sounds is changed and is easier in some way. It slows down articulation and increases phonation. This is something that is also used in stuttering therapy, where speech therapists are working with the clients on ways to modulate the speech. And it increases activations in critical brain circuits for speech motor control. So this is the brain part of this research. On the other hand, we don't know so much about singing in a group and the benefits for stuttering. Group singing has been studied in the SingWell network and also before. So just some benefits for well-being are the following. So it fosters inclusion and the feeling of social connectedness. It helps be more resilient, and it also reduces stress levels and enhances positive emotions. So all these aspects might help counteract those psychosocial impact and psychosocial symptoms that stuttering might bring for some of the persons who stutter. So in this study, we want to see two things, or we want to investigate in a proof of concept study two things. The first one is what I just said, that group singing may help to attenuate the psychosocial impact of stuttering. So helps feeling socially connected, inducing happy emotions, less distressed, and maybe less stigmatized. And the second one is, can group singing also help communication, like training vocal effectors, helping rhythm and timing processes, enhancing intergroup coordination, and via these processes also help articulatory processes and ultimately interspeaker coordination. So this is a study that encompasses a lot of things because we don't know exactly where we will find an effect. That's why we are really here in proof of concept study, and it's, as I know, so far the first of its kind. We hope to get some things very soon out of it. Here you see, like any choir study, we do this with a very large crowd of people, and we are so grateful that all these people are working together and that we can make an impact. So here you see the scientific team from SingWell, from UDM Brahms. Also, without our trainees, we could never go anywhere with these studies. And then we have our choir directors, 3 currently, and Dina is with us today. And certainly our participants don't have pictures from our participants, but this is our most precious collaboration here, that our participants also come to the choirs, and with the help of the groups like ABC, Association Begime Communication, this Canadian Stuttering Association, or the AGBQ. And finally, we also work together with speech therapists who help us with the stuttering, with following up on the choir, with helping with analysis, and also we are in contact to share our results with them. So here I will dive into the choir and how it was set up so far. Here you see this was the announcement for the first choir, which we did together with ABC in Quebec. And what did we do exactly? So far, we were lucky to have several choir sessions. We started right after the pandemic in October 22 and in March 23 in Montreal. These are results I will very shortly present, but it's still preliminary, as you can see, because we have other choirs that were going on afterwards. One in October 2023 with children and adolescents, and now one in October 2024 in Toronto, which is maybe still will be ongoing in spring 2025, and maybe also one in Hamilton. So we're currently with SingWell looking for people who are interested to join those choirs, and here is a link that we will send you also afterwards, I think, and you can hopefully, if you want to join the choir, you can leave your name and your email address so we can contact you when we have enough people that will join. The choirs were taking place for 10 weeks for 1.5 hours, and here you see the choir that Dina, who's here, will talk about in a minute. So it was together with the Centre des Musiciens du Monde in Montreal. And here you see our nice setup in church, where we had the opportunity to rehearse and have this wonderful group singing ongoing. In the scientific project, this was our procedure. So we had first pre-test. So there were some tests we did online and questionnaires our participants did for 2 hours. Then they joined the choir for 10 weeks, where we had on-site tests twice for 20 minutes approximately during one session, and then tests and questionnaire after the choir period finished again for 2 hours. Here, our participants really were all across all ages. A little bit, we have a missing group in the later adolescents, but we had really an adult choir going from 26 to 74, and now we have some more participants also from the Toronto group, and hopefully we have also some more from the continuous choir that are ongoing. Our testing was the following. So as I said, we are testing many things because we have different hypotheses about what we could find as a benefit of the choir for everyone, but specifically also to stuttering. We are testing articulation and voice, musical capacities, the psychosocial impact of stuttering, stigmatization, fluency, interspeaker coordination, and the quality of life and well-being. And you see via online testing or questionnaires. So I will report on these 3 from our preliminary results from the first choir. And the first one was for the well-being, so via questionnaires. We had significant results for these 10 adults, where they perceived a higher quality of life in the psychosocial domain after the group singing period. And they also answered they would be more prone now to participate in social events after having attended a choir. The most the most prominent results was on stigma. So it's still just 10 people, but it was quite consistent that people perceive that there was a reduction in stigmatization, especially in self-concurrence or auto-stigmatization, which you can see here in this graph, pre and post. So it went down for most of the participants. And also in stigma agreement, that is how much one agrees with the stereotypes of the surrounding environment. Finally, we also looked at communication processes and inter-speaker coordination. And here we found that people seem to coordinate better after the choir period. So the variability of articulation rate when they were asked to read it together with another person went down after group singing. And we suspect that this might be an index or a marker of a more stable rhythm between the interlocutors. We are looking into this in more detail and with some other tasks as well currently. So in the sum, singing in a group with other people who stutter has the potential to foster social inclusion, enhance self-esteem as a person who stutters, help choosing or stabilizing one's own rhythm in verbal interaction. And what we are trying now to do is to finish our testing and analysis and complete this proof of concept study with getting more people into the choirs and also having a control condition, which is currently ongoing in Montreal. So, if anyone wants to join a dance group currently, you're really invited to contact us. Also, we will start in March. We will start another dance group. We had one already ongoing, and hopefully we have some more participants for this group too. Thank you very much. Here you can see some testimonies of people that were attending the first choir, and I think Audrey will have some more to add to this, and also Dina will talk to you in a minute about her experiences with being a choir director for a group who stutters. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Simone. That's so interesting and so well presented to really give us that sense of what the research is telling us, and also it's how that research was extracted from the experience with the group singing. Like, just to have that perspective was really, really interesting, well presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please note, everyone, if you have questions while they're in your mind, just pop them into the chat and we will be sure that they get answered by Simone in a little bit. So, as Simone mentioned, she worked with Dina Cindrić to lead as one of the facilitators of this choir. Dina is an experienced musician and vocal workshop leader. In her role as a workshop or vocal leader with groups, she specializes in a cappella folk singing and incorporates movement, listening, mindfulness, and community building to create an inclusive and highly accessible space for embodied expression and music making. In addition to her work at the World Music Center in Montreal, she facilitates collaborative group singing with the Respecting Elders Communities Against Abuse, so RECA choir. She also led the choir, as you know, who stutter as part of a research project that spearheaded by Simone and the International Laboratory for Brain, Music, and Sound. I had the chance to speak with Dina as part of some of the research we're doing to connect with group singing leaders, and I was really inspired by your approach, particularly from the mindfulness perspective and the mind-body connection with singing. And so I'm really looking forward to your presentation, and we welcome you to this space. Thank you, Dina.
Great, thank you so much. I also have slides to share, so let me just get that set up. Let me know if it's okay. Is that working? Yeah, you're just seeing my slides.
Yeah, it's working great. I'm nodding my head, but you need to hear my voice. Yes,
no, I saw you. I can see. So thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here. I'm very honored to be here to speak on something that I'm very, very close to my heart, which is facilitating group singing. and in particular for people who stutter. As we mentioned, I've been directing community choirs for several years, and I've had the privilege of working with many diverse groups. A large part of my personal and professional journey has been shaped by my background in Balkan polyphonic singing. My background is that I'm Croatian, and this type of singing is really rooted in communal singing. So this experience has really taught me a lot about vocal communication and how transformative music can be in people's lives, particularly in fostering community, connection, and expression. So in my work, I've come to recognize that group singing can be a tool for empowerment, but there can also be challenges since it is about communication, but it's also about vulnerability. So I'd like to share today some of the strategies that I've personally found effective working with community groups, and in this case, particularly with people who stutter. I'll also be sharing some of the challenges that can arise. So I'll get this slide going. So one of the first and most important strategies that I find is to create a safe space. People who stutter often feel self-conscious or anxious about speaking or singing in front of others. So it's really crucial to foster a space where people feel respected, supported, and not judged for how they express themselves. One way to do this is to set clear intentions right at the beginning of a session. Literally saying this is not about perfection, but about self-expression, connection, that there's no wrong way to do this, that we're here to support one another, be kind, respectful, and have fun. Encourage an atmosphere of mutual respect. When someone is speaking, listen attentively and without interrupting. This can really help diminish the fear of making mistakes, whether vocally or in terms of stuttering. Allow and encourage comments and questions. So if there's people here in the room who are more used to a traditional choir setting, you might not want so much of that. But in this case, I was really asking for comments, reminding people that they're welcome to ask questions at any time. As Simone said, our group was 10 people, provided everyone was there and then healthy. So it wasn't a very large group, right? If you're working with a group of 40, it's a little different, but I personally like working with smaller groups so that you can have these nice safe spaces. If you notice that someone hasn't spoken, but maybe looks like they would like to, invite them into the conversation. So you might see someone kind of on the edge of their seat. They look like they might want to speak. And you can just say, would you like to add anything? They can always, shake their head no if they're too shy to add anything. Of course, a group will often mirror the facilitator. So it's really your duty to model. So go with the flow, be vulnerable, empathetic, curious, stay open, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, then the group will actually also feel like, oh, it's okay to make mistakes. And mistakes are the only way to learn, right? Another strategy I employ with all my singing groups is holding rehearsals in a circle rather than in rows. So this formation removes the hierarchical structure of traditional choirs and helps participants feel equal in the space. So instead of participants facing a leader at the front of the room, everyone is on equal footing. This setup also emphasizes openness, connection, collaboration, and creates a sense of community, which is essential for people who stutter to feel like they're a part of a supportive group dynamic. It facilitates a more natural, informal exchange, which is great for that safe space communication that we're going for. It also encourages eye contact and nonverbal communication, which can be really comforting for people who stutter. Singing in a circle encourages deeper listening and collective responsibility. So it fosters a sense of collective responsibility for the sound that the group creates. For people who stutter, it can be really empowering to know that they're surrounded by supportive peers rather than just being focused on by the conductor at the front of the room. Another strategy I use is mindfulness exercises. So Kathy mentioned that. So singing is a physical experience, so I actually always begin rehearsals with mindfulness exercises. This helps participants become more aware of their bodies and breath, which can be really beneficial for people who stutter. Some exercises that I use are a body scan, space awareness exercises, listening and breathing techniques, all of which help participants to be in the present moment, reduces anxiety and tension in the body, and really makes it easier to express, to be expressive and feel free without feeling blocked. Some of the modalities that that inform the exercises I use are meditation and breathing techniques, body mapping, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais method, Qigong, continuum movement, basically anything I've taken for my own personal mindfulness work, I tend to incorporate into my mindfulness exercises. Movement exercises can also help people connect with music and sounding on a physical level. It helps participants get out of their heads and puts the focus instead on the body and less on the fear of speaking or singing incorrectly. Things like stretches, massage, tapping, sort of kind of like a self-massage tapping, which I've taken from my Qigong classes, moving, a little bit of dance. I might then move into vocal warm-ups, your more traditional vocal warm-ups. But I really do vocal warm-ups with movement. So I am particularly fond of James Jordan's choral warm-ups. He has a great book called The Choral Warm-Up. And these are warm-ups which are very somatic and incorporate what you would consider typical choral vocal warm-ups with gesture and movement. So there's one where we're like, dee, 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 dee. So there's a movement with the vocal warm-up. His work is informed by Rudolf Laban, particularly Laban's 8 efforts, which describe movement energy. Yeah, highly recommend James Jordan. It's a great starting point, particularly for choral directors who maybe are new to movement, but are interested in bringing embodied expression to their singers. After I do some of that, I often then do improvisation and listening games, which I find to be another powerful strategy. These exercises help singers become more comfortable with spontaneity, and it reduces the fear of being wrong again. When improvising, everyone has an equal chance to contribute, and the emphasis is on listening and responding to the group rather than adhering to a strict melody or rhythm. Improvisation exercises also encourage nonverbal expression, so that allows individuals to participate without worrying about verbal fluency. For people who stutter, this can be liberating as it shifts the focus away from traditional forms of speech and gives them an outlet for expression that's grounded in sound and creativity. It's a very playful approach. We may see a little video of some of it, I'm not sure at the end. And it really fosters a sense of community and connection. Here's some of the games I like to use. I especially love using a very simple call and response game. I generally start all of my groups with, on the first rehearsal with a call and response, where one person sings a phrase with a gesture connected to it and others repeat it. So it might be something like, and then everyone does it, and then I'll do some more, and then we go around in the circle and everyone gets to do one. It's a very natural way to build confidence, doesn't require sustained, uninterrupted speech or singing. All sounds are welcome, and I make a point of saying that every time. And it's really important for, again, the facilitator to model silly all sounds, right? If I were to go, you know, then everyone's nervous that, oh, they need to make a beautiful melody or something, right? So any, right? Really just having fun, getting people to explore making sounds. So I have a number of games that I've developed over the years. Call and response, hum, mirror, drone. A lot of these can be found on the New Music Network's PCM hub. So that's a hub online with a lot of great resources for different activities. So those games are on there. I also really love the work of Rhiannon. So she's an improviser who works with Bobby McFerrin, among others. And she has excellent improv and listening games. And I took a workshop with her. But she also has a book with little improvisation cards that you can use. So those are great resources if you want to incorporate some improvisation into your work. Next here is repertoire. So choosing the right repertoire is essential. Of course, I should have said this at the start. This is sort of my approach. I'm sure there's people right here today who, if you work with community groups, a lot of this, it will be familiar. This is just sort of what I've found. And of course, like Kathy said at the start, I like a cappella singing, so that's of course the repertoire that I'll go for. I've found that it's helpful to use songs that are simple, easy to learn with repetitive patterns or simple evocative melodies, because this gives everyone a sense of mastery over the material. So that self-esteem, confidence boost right from the get-go. Songs that allow for emotional expression over technical precision can also create a really welcoming environment for singers who might struggle with vocal coordination. I often begin a session with rounds or songs sung in unison, because these types of songs make it easier for participants to focus on the collective sound and experience rather than individual performance. And it's a great way to gradually introduce harmonizing. In all my groups, I like to program a cappella folk songs that are taught by rote. For one thing, there's no need for SATV, divisi. If someone feels called to sing along, they'll sing a line, they sing it. There's an opportunity then to move around the circle, to connect with others and not feel restricted by their voice part, Through the course of the session, someone may discover where they're most comfortable singing in this way, and so they'll discover their voice themselves. Because in this case, we're not bound by a score, the singers are also in charge. So they choose the key, they choose the tempo, there's space for exploration, there's space for creating something that's empowering and it's forgiving, right? So if a person misses a word or a note, it doesn't matter because we're just exploring. Having said that, while I generally teach songs without scores, just lyric sheets with the Choral qui bégaye, I provided a score with a very simple, just one line. And a few of the participants really loved it because it was the first time that they were challenged to read music and to learn some music theory. So much about this is being adaptable to the individuals in your group as the session progresses. Call and response songs, 2 to 3 voice parts are also excellent to incorporate. Lastly, while it wasn't the case with the Choral qui bégaye, if and when you have a group for a longer session, I find encouraging the participants themselves to suggest repertoire is really effective. They take great pride and ownership in the repertoire. The hierarchy of traditional choir, where often one person decides the repertoire, that becomes dismantled. And again, there's a greater sense of community, and the repertoire then really becomes more meaningful to the group. I'm going to go quickly through this. I see my time ticking. Okay, when teaching the repertoire, it's important to go slowly and allow for repetition. I'll often sing the song, or in the Choral qui bégaye, we would listen to a recording of a field recording. I was doing a lot of world music since it was part of the World Music Center. And then I allow for comments on what they've heard. I then teach the song by rote. Rote means that it's based on listening and imitating and repeating. So teaching a song by rote is a great way to help the group develop listening skills and work on technique. And it encourages auditory memory without requiring any formal musical training or literacy. So again, it's accessible to everyone. I encourage participants to listen to recordings at home. So with the Choral qui bégaye, I made a private Facebook group where I would post videos of the songs. This gives them an opportunity to practice on their own. So when they enter group sessions, they can do so with more confidence without the pressure of having to catch up in the group. So those were the strategies I used. Of course, there's some challenges when working with people who stutter, one of which is vocal fatigue. People who stutter can tire more quickly due to the additional physical and emotional energy that's required for speech or singing. So it's really important to balance rehearsal time with breaks and vocal rest. Incorporate shorter sessions, take breaks, work with some members of the group while others can sort of rest and just listen. Just generally always be aware of the energy level of your singers. Another challenge can be singing experience. So not everyone will have the same background with singing. For some, singing might be a completely new experience, especially in a group. So for people who stutter, the fear of sounding bad or being unable to keep up can create additional anxiety. So I find that honoring and meeting where each person is in their vocal journey is key. Again, when it's a smaller group, it's really nice because you can actually have that time to understand where everyone is at. It's important to create space for those with less experience to build confidence using simpler exercises, repetition. Always encourage a focus on the joy of singing rather than perfection. On the other hand, some singers might want a bit of a challenge, but do so with care and sensitivity. So pushing a little, but not too much, takes a special touch. Hold on, here we go. Another challenge is performance pressure. Singing in public is a high pressure situation for anyone, but for those who stutter, it can feel really particularly daunting. So it's important to recognize that performance should never feel like an evaluation, but is instead an opportunity to celebrate the process and collective achievement. Give singers a choice. Do they want to do a performance or not, rather than requiring it? So this can alleviate some of the pressure. With the Choral there was no planned concert. The purpose was really the research and on my side, the joy of singing together. So this didn't come up for us. Group dynamics. I only have a couple more, I promise. Group dynamics can be complex. So when people are dealing with different levels of comfort, experience, and vulnerability, people who stutter feel particularly sensitive to how others perceive them. So negative dynamics or judgments from the group can really impact their confidence. So it's important to regularly check in with the group, establish an open line of communication. So that might mean, if you're willing to say, here's my email address, if something comes up and you're not comfortable sharing it in front of the group, finding ways that people feel that they're able to come to you if something is going on, and address any tensions or discomforts early on. Finally, emotional vulnerability. Singing in a group can bring up deep emotions. For those who stutter, the act of singing in front of others can sometimes trigger a heightened sense of emotional vulnerability. So as groups, singing facilitators and leaders, it's really important that we learn about the challenges that people who stutter face. That can be watching documentaries, reading books, or speaking to people who stutter and finding out what are some of the things that you go through and how can I support that in the group singing environment. Be sensitive to any emotions that may arise. Crucial to affirm the courage it takes to sing. As a facilitator, creating a culture of emotional safety is just as important as the musical instruction. So this includes offering encouragement, celebrating progress, and validating each person's unique voice. It's essential to approach these moments with care and provide support. If you're not a therapist, I'm not a therapist, there might be some music therapists here. If you're not a therapist, be prepared with resources to pass along if needed. And I think I have the same photo that Simone had on her slides. So while there certainly are challenges, the rewards of seeing people find their confidence through singing are really immeasurable. By creating safe spaces, fostering group cohesion, choosing the right repertoire, we can really help individuals connect, express themselves, and be heard. And when we offer this to people who stutter, we really provide an invaluable gift of self-expression and community. So thank you so much. I know I went a little over time here.
That's okay. Thank you, Dina. I think I would like to sing in one of your groups.
Oh, yeah, I would love it. I would love it.
I think what you've spoken to here is a real mastery, a very masterful approach to leadership that is about the music, but primarily about the people. and to address that vulnerability and very intentional approach to connection really, I believe, helps to create a space where the benefits of singing with others can be more readily delivered. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And that was really great. And I know we've got some questions that will be coming up, but I want to hop to our friend Audrey, who is here. I know Audrey has to get going fairly soon, so I will just turn this over to you, Audrey. We're just so happy that you're here to share your experience as someone who stutters and how singing in a group was of benefit to you. So welcome to this space. We're really happy you're here.
So thank you for inviting me to join to the panel. I will introduce myself. My name is Audrey. I'm an adult who stutters. Also, my first language is French, but I will do my best to speak in English. I am also the president of the ABC, Association Bigama Communication. The ABC is a non-profit organization that helps the adult who stutters in the province of Quebec. So I joined this panel also as a member of the board of directors of the ABC. When I first heard about the project of the Choral québécois, I thought that it was an interesting project to join. The group started just after the pandemic, and while the pandemic, we didn't do a group and the social activities, and at this point of my life, I also started a new job with a full-time remote. So I was at home all the time, and at this point, I was like, hey, I just want to do a fun activity in group. So this so that opportunity to join the Choral québécois was well welcoming in my life. At this point, I also didn't have a lot of experience with singing. In my childhood and adolescence, I did in music, but I never sang. So I thought that I will be a little bit shy to participate because I'm not a professional singer. I didn't participated in a choir before, but I thought that the inclusive ambience of the group was great. So I was not shy at all to participate. We also were a small group, so it was not intimidating, and we were all adults who is stutter with many kind of backgrounds in the music and the singing. It was an inclusive group, and I felt well welcome in this group. I'm just looking at my notes, and also we learned a lot of songs about it in many languages and many cultures. So it was interesting to learn and to sing these songs, because there were not in the languages in which we speak in our daily lives. So I learned songs from east of Europe and the African songs. So it was great. And also as a non-profit organizations that have since many years a lot of partnerships with researchers about stuttering. I also think that this is important to continue this kind of partnerships. There is still a lot of learn and to discover about stuttering, and when the ABC have the opportunity to collaborate with researchers that works with stuttering. This is a win-win partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. Also
Thank you.
for speaking to us in English under this, all this online microscope. It was just what you communicated was really important. And I'm so glad
Thank you.
that you said, I just want some fun. And that fun was singing with others and that it filled your cup.
Sure.
But you spoke to what's so important here, and one of the things that's really important about this conversation are these collaborations, and that come from a place of multiple perspectives, which is really what we're talking about today. So thank you for offering the perspective of its benefit to you, and not just as a participant, but also to someone who advocates for people who stutter in your work with the ABC. So thank you so much. I do know that you have to go, but we will take questions, and Catherine and I will email them to Audrey, and we can get answers and include them in that transcript, because we really appreciate your perspective, really appreciate what you had to say. And thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have to go, we wish you a happy Friday and a happy Valentine's Day too.
Thank you. And if you have some question for me, just send them to me by an email.
You bet. That's what we'll do. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, merci. Oh, it's just, I mean, this is now our fourth, thank you, in this series, and it's just such a holistic experience to go from to talk about things from a research perspective and a leadership perspective, and then from the participants' perspective, to see that it really matters what we're doing. It really matters what leaders are doing to facilitate for community members who are looking for a place to belong, and also for a place to where they feel safe to communicate with under the challenges that they experience in life. But it also speaks to the importance of the curiosity around what's really happening in that space that can bring about improved well-being and improved communication. So this community that we're building, I think, or that exists, I just really appreciate that there is this opportunity for us to all come together and hear things from people from different perspectives. So I really thank you all for being here, and thank you particularly Simone and Dina and Audrey for sharing your perspectives today. We do have a few questions. If you have to go, we wish you a happy weekend and a happy Valentine's Day, and also want you to know that on March 21st, we're having another session at the same time about group singing and its benefits for people with hearing loss. So that will be Ben Zandel and Sina Fala and Barbara, Lazar will be joining us in about a month, about 5 weeks time. However, in the meantime, we do have some questions. I'll start with Simone, if that's all right. Someone asked you to talk a little more about how you know that people who stutter have more vocal fatigue versus people who don't stutter. So there's a question for you.
Can you repeat it? I don't. Excuse me.
I'll just read the question directly.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about how you know that people who stutter have more vocal fatigue than people who do not stutter?
In generally, so like, I think that is not necessarily true for the choir. We don't have the numbers for that, but Dina had some observations on that. We didn't measure this directly from the choir if they have more vocal fatigue than someone else. I mean, you know that choir studies are very complex because there are many. You would need to know what happens in a choir with people who have not stuttering or hearing loss or breathing disorders. You would want to have a group where you test people individually versus a group, then you would have like control conditions, and we cannot do all of this at the same time, right? So we are right now, I can't answer this question, whether there's really more vocal fatigue in when coming from singing, but maybe Dina wants to add something from the observation she had, because she has seen the group.
Thank you, Simone. Did you want to add to that, Dina?
Sure. I know I mentioned that as a challenge. I'm not a researcher, so it wasn't coming from any scientific proof. I think it's more just honestly, generally, in singing groups, it was mostly to say for us as choral and group singing leaders, just to be aware of that as a challenge of not necessarily even specifically to people who stutter, but just to be aware that, you know, people who aren't singing, like, you know, voice teachers or professional singers, that we should just be aware of the vocal fatigue. So yeah, yeah.
So it's an important anecdotal observation that is, you know, these are this is the wisdom that group singing leaders bring to us, particularly someone who works with different populations within the community, that is something you have noticed, is that there seems to be quicker, you know, rapid onset of fatigue, more so than people who don't stutter in the other groups that you work with. So thank you for that. Both of you, thank you for that perspective. And here is another question for Dina. I'll just pivot right back to you. Did your group allow people who did not stutter to participate as well?
No. So the group that we had, it was just people who stutter in the group because of it being part of their research project. So if that is a question coming from someone who's thinking about facilitating, I forgot to mention that. So because it was a group of people who stutter, while maybe the first rehearsal, people didn't know each other, I think because it was all people who stutter, there was already a little bit more comfort. So, you know, they would talk to each, you know, there wasn't that, you know, social anxiety as things progress, because it was all people who stutter. And Simone, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the safe space again, what Dina already underlined, that this was the main reason not to start with a mixed group, or thinking also about facilitating contact between people who do and do not stutter, or looking at this kind of question, what group singing would bring in a larger context. So that was really also a wish from the stuttering organizations, that associations, that we provide a safe space. So people, because barriers are really, really high. So we didn't mention that, and Audrey could have, because she's the head of ABC, and we experienced this when advertising the project, that we had interest from many people, that they said the barriers were very high to go to the group in the end, because of the I can't sing, I don't want to expose myself. That was really something that is also not common in the community to speak about singing. Yes, it's all about speech, but not necessarily about singing. And singing is like on top of speaking. You have to sing in front of someone. Yeah, that's also something we felt is a very important barrier to work on, to provide safety for people who have never experienced this kind of situation before. So that was the ultimate reason, just to have people who stutter in the group.
Which isn't, I mean, I think that as someone who leads community choirs, I think that is a barrier for many people. However, in a situation where the very thing that we believe that the singing can benefit is one of the major barriers to participation, which is, well, I struggle to get my words out. So how can I sing? I can't imagine myself doing that. So removing those barriers is through inclusive and accessibility and kindness and that kind of relational leadership and mirroring that makes, and really, I guess, I suppose, an embracing of a growth mindset, which just makes mistakes are fine. mistakes are how we learn. And yet there's a confidence thing that comes with singing that I think many of us, whatever our perspective may be, are really intentional on shifting the conversation around those barriers into something that singing is just a form of expression and everyone's safe to do it. And yet in your I can see why in the capacity of your research, it was really important to create that exclusive space where the stigma in particular was neutralized by that safety. So really important. Brad asked a question, and his question was, in my experience in a choir, it's more of a statement, so I'm hoping Brad's still here to give us some context. In my experience in a choir, I find singing more relaxing than speaking. Are you still here, Brad?
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
I am.
Can you tell us, Brad, are you someone who stutters?
Yes, I am.
So tell us a little bit, if you want to. Sorry
Sure.
for calling on you with no heads up, but can you tell us a little bit about, flesh that statement out for us a little bit?
Yeah. The choirs that I joined a couple of months ago, and I did it because I wanted to do my own personal research about what the experience was being able to sing. And I'm in a choir, two choirs. One is a men's only choir, and one is a mixed women and men. And I'm the only person that I know who stutters within the choir, but singing with people who don't stutter just normalizes the singing process and experience, and I'm not unique in the group. So while I do understand the value of having a closed container, protected space to do the research, I think there's also missing variables with the quality of just being people who sing, and that especially being around experienced singers, to be able to mirror with them their experience, I've found that to be hugely valuable. It's like doing a movement that describes with a really amazing tango dancer, that they're able to lead you around the floor incredibly fluently and beautifully because they have that experience. So I think there is an independent variable here to look at the future research about having mixed groups with highly experienced singers that I can vocally, or other people who stutter could vocally join, like vocally join, and we carry each other in that way.
That's a really important point. As we move from what the research tells us into what our communities need and what the people in our communities need, opening that space from our singing groups or choirs. Sometimes the word choir itself can be a barrier to people. Just opening it and saying, really, with the belief that everyone can sing.
Exactly.
And
because just one of the experiences that I have had as a person who stutters, who worries about fluency, the ability to do something vocally that has rhythm, fluency, and dare I say beauty to it is such an amazing experience to be able to do something with my voice that regardless of whether I'm a person who stutters or not, has quality to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your courage in speaking out and giving us, and even adding on to what Audrey was shared with us already about the experience. Participant experience is so important because this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
This is why we're looking at these questions and asking ourselves these questions as researchers and leaders is what about the people? So thank you so much for that. Just a couple more questions here. I love all this engagement. Let me come back to Simone. Let me make sure I'm reading these in order. Simone, in your research, were participants aware of your study's hypothesis when they were completing the surveys before and after?
Sure, there was some of a more general vision why we do the choir. We have to give that in the constant form, and we have to inform why we do some of the tests. I mean, not in every detail for every test, yes, but I think the general theme, but even if we wouldn't have said it, I think the general theme of joining a group for singing is that someone wants to have fun or wants to feel well, like Audrey also put it. And so the blinding, it's hard to achieve because we cannot blind them from what condition they will be in, because they are having expectations about that. So is like any of the choir studies has this bias that people are expecting to get some benefits out of it. So there's no blinding in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But you're right. Prior to participating in research, people are given information as they consent to participate in those studies, and so there is just in that alone, there's information about what the study is about. So I suppose that's yeah, that's a really important awareness to have. Is that in that sense, it can't really be blind. I'm just making sure I have such great questions. We may not have time for all of them. Thank you so much for being so engaged, everybody. I think we have time for a couple more. And Catherine is giving me these questions so well, and yet I still feel a little bit lost. Let me see, Dina. That's a really great question. In your leadership philosophy, is the mindfulness practice directed to the introspective experience of the participants, to the singing experience? And was there any, it's a two-part question. So let me ask that question again. And then if there's time for the second part, I'll ask that too. Is your mindfulness practice directed to the introspective experience of participants? Versus, I'm not sure what the singing experience means, but maybe perhaps versus the singing experience. Like, what is the purpose of taking a very mindful approach?
Sure. Honestly, maybe even more simple than that, in that we're all coming from different, our day, it was a Tuesday, some people were at work. One of the participants had to drive an hour, I think, to come to the rehearsals. So a lot of it for me is to bring everyone to where we are now. Very simple answer to that is just to finally, it's just that, okay, I can forget about my day at work. I'm here right now. Just that groundedness, presence, and then yes, the presence that then can carry over into the singing experience. So we're not thinking about how am I going to sound? Can I sing in this strange language that I've never heard before? Just being with it, that spontaneity, that presence, that groundedness, and the calming effects of it. If we all just took a deep breath right now and exhaled on a count of 4, I think,
yeah,
right? It's just, okay, I'm here. I can be with the people I'm in this room with now.
Before I ask you the second part of the question, I have a question for you as a leader, because people who facilitate singing groups are doing many things while they look very calm, while they energize and connect and teach and shape. Does your mindfulness practice with your singers impact you as a leader?
Yeah. and I mean, I'm doing it at the same time as well, so I get the benefits of it. Yeah, I mean, it exactly what you said, you know, as a leader, again, like I said, I've conducted larger choirs. It's a lot of energies, right? So what I do like with, in this case, the group was 10 people, is that, yeah, I do want to know where everyone is at. And so the mindfulness exercises at the start just kind of bring, you know, various energies, like I said, to a more grounded space. And so then it is easier for me as a leader as well to connect and know, what can I do with, what are we doing today? How are we going to explore, have fun, connect?
Beautiful. I just note that Frank mentioned that some SingWell studies are blind studies, but for this particular study, they chose not to blind. So thank you for that, Frank, in the chat. And one last question from Brad. The question is really about helping participants become self-reflective to their embodied experience. Again, more of a statement from your experience. That's really important, Brad. What is it feeling like versus how do I sound? Which could be an interesting question to ask in research as well, in terms of what we ask of our participants and how we analyze that data. Just a potentially another data point to consider about how that embodied experience that Dina has spoken to so beautifully might have well-being impacts and might have impacts in terms of communication outcomes as well. So, wow, this hour and a half has flown by. What a very engaging, wonderful way for me to spend this part of my Friday with all of you. And thank you, Dina and Simone and Audrey, for bringing your expertise and your perspectives. And I know I, for one, will walk away knowing, with fresh knowing of, that I didn't have before we started today. So thank you all for that. Please note that we do have your questions. If they did not get answered today, we'll direct them to the correct people, and then we'll integrate those into the Q&A document that we'll send you. You'll also receive a survey and perhaps some invitations to participate in some of our research. And a reminder about the following. We have 2 more sessions left in this series. As I mentioned, we have one on March 21st about regarding group singing and hearing loss. And then on April 25th, for those of you who are come at this from a deeply invested in the choral or group singing leadership experience, we have Ardell Reese, who will be joining us. And she is just an amazing leader with her heart and mind in a beautiful space around creating that inclusivity and accessibility. And then to top that off, she will be joined by Frank and Arla to talk about the social bonding aspect of singing with others. That is really such an umbrella piece to this group singing experience. So I'm really excited that we'll be ending the series that way, but also really sad that we'll be ending the series. However, for today, I thank you all so much for being here with us. Thank you for your questions and being so engaging, and with our speakers. Again, thanks to the speakers and Frank and Arla, of course, for creating this goodness, and Catherine for helping to facilitate it. Have a wonderful Friday, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. And I hope to see you all back in this space next month. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.